So I meant to show you, sometimes you're going to have problems like this where there's a number in front, and trying to complete the square when there's a number in front of x squared is totally possible. It's just a real pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide the whole equation by whatever we have to. Your goal is to just kill that number right there. No matter what, that's your goal. And these problems, I think, are all very nicely written. Obviously, I didn't click through 1,000 of them, but they seem like they're all pretty nice. So you don't want the 4 in front of the x squared. So you take this whole equation and divide everything by 4. And then that leaves you with just 1x squared plus 32 divided by 4 is 8x plus 24 divided by 4 is 6, like this. And then you're going to start completing the square process from there. So I'll move the 6 to the other side. And then remember to leave that space where the 6 used to be. Also remember to make it negative when you move it, or positive if it was negative, whatever. And then you follow the algorithm that you learned on Thursday, and that is to take half of 8. So this number right here, you take half of 8. Half of 8 is 4. And if you square that, you get 16. So I'm going to add 16 right here, and I'm going to add 16 right here. And at this point, you know what I'm talking about. We have completed the square. So this is now a square, and it factors down into x plus 4 squared. And then you do the little kitty math on the right-hand side. Negative 6 plus 16 is 10. And then you square root both sides. So you get x plus 4 equals, remember to put your positive negative sign as soon as you square root. And then you can't take the square root of 10 and you can't break down the square root of 10. So you just put a nice simple root 10. And then the final step in the process, remember, is to take the 4 and move it. And when you move it, you want to make sure you put it right there. So we don't want it to go after the root. We want it to go before. So the answer is going to be x equals negative 4 and then plus or minus the square root of 10. And this isn't one of those problems that we can go further on because, like I said, the square root of 10 is just dead. So then in the box, I would just type in negative 4 and then use the little plus or minus button and then use the square root button, negative 4 plus or minus root 10. And that's it. And remember, there's 2 other things that can happen. Number 1 is you can get this root over here could be breakable, like simplifiable, like if it was 20 or 24 or 45 or something like that, then you break down the square root into the little tree. And the other possibility is that the square root is just a square rootable number. So like an example of that would be, let's say you had like x minus 3 squared equals 25. Then here, when you square root both sides, you get x minus 3 equals positive negative, but you wouldn't put something stupid like the square root of 25. You would put 5 because you can. And then you move the 3. And remember that you put the 3 right there. So you wind up with x equals 3 plus or minus 5. And these are the ones where please recall that you have to write it as 2 different answers. So if you take the plus the top pathway, you get 3 plus 5, which is 8. If you take the minus the bottom pathway, 3 minus 5 is negative 2. So in a case like this, in Delta, remember that you have to type in 2 answers. So you can do a couple of things here. You could type in one of your answers and then hit comma, and it brings in a second box for your other answer. Or you can hit this cute little plus button right here where I'm wiggling my mouse around, and that also brings in a second box. I would say that probably half or more of them, you don't need the second box because you're going to get answers like 4 plus or minus 3 root 2 or something like that. And those can't go further. But on the ones where the roots go away, then those are the ones where you need the multiple boxes. So I do see a few of you who were gone on Thursday paying close attention. So another possibility would be something like this. Let's say you get to the end and you have x plus 6 squared equals 32. So when we square root both sides here, we get x plus 6 equals positive or negative. But you don't want to put the square root of 32 because the square root of 32, there's a better version of him. And it is, remember when you do root 16 times root 2, and that comes out to 4 root 2. So you put 4 root 2 there, and then you finish the problem like normal. So x equals a moved negative 6 plus or minus 4 root 2. Those should be the only three things that you encounter. Roots that can't be simplified, roots like this that can, and then roots that just completely go away. So that's that. I'd be happy to go over any problems with you. Whether you were here Thursday or not, I'd be happy to give you a boost if you're stuck on something. Just let me know. Sure. Would you tell me what it is? Mhm. So the first thing we want to do is get it structured correctly. So we're going to take the 70x and we're going to move it over and we're going to stick it right where it belongs, right in, terms are supposed to go in certain places. So we're going to leave the 5x squared. We're going to add the 70x, and then we're going to scoop the plus 200 aside like this, because the first thing you should do, I mean, eventually you wouldn't do that. Like you would move the 200 while you're at it, but it's okay to just pile it all up on one side, mess with it, and then we'll move the other number when we're done. So what do you notice about all these? Yeah, and honestly, even if this and this were not divisible by 5, just FYI, the ones that I've crossed out in red, I wouldn't care anyways because the my mission is clear. Like I'm going to divide everything by 5 just because of that guy. So if it didn't work out nice, then I'd be like, well, dang it. But I'm still going to divide. So if you divide everything by 5, you knock this down to regular x squared. Do you know what 70 divided by 5 is? I do. It's okay. I'll help you. It's 14. And then I bet this one you don't need a calculator for. What's 200 divided by 5? $200 is divided evenly among 5 friends. Each friend gets, boy, that was one of the worst answers I've heard. I can't believe Mari she just burned you. She set you up for that. 40. And then this is where the algorithm kicks in. So all that prep work was really just to get us to this. And the goal was to get this, to not have a number in front of it, the yellow arrow there. So now we're going to kick in the steps from Thursday. We're going to leave the x squared. We're going to leave the 14x. We're going to vacate that 40 and move it to the other side and make it negative 40. And then we complete the square. And what's the magic number right here that completes the square? You take half of the number that I'm circling in red, which is 7. And if you square that, you get 49. So 49 is the number that completes the square. And since we added 49 on the left, we have to also add 49 on the right. It's not 89 because when we moved the 40 to the other side, it became a negative 40. So we wind up, if we factor down the left-hand side, it factors into x plus 7 times x plus 7, which is x plus 7 squared. And then we get a 9. So you can tell this is going to be one of those pathway problems where at the end we have to get two different answers because 9 is going to be rootable, huh? You okay?
Yeah.
Why are you glaring at my TV? Oh, okay. So it wasn't an I don't know what you're doing glare. It was an I can't see glare. Roger that. I took half of the number that is circled in red, which is plus 7, and then I squared it, and that is 49. And that's where the magic number comes from. Are you ready to resume? Okay, so now we're going to square root both sides. When you square root this side, it just becomes x plus 7. And then when you square root the right side, I'm telling you right now, the most common way that once people know how to do this, the most common way they miss it is to put 3. Because like we all know the square root of 9 is 3, but because we're solving an equation, we have to consider that the square root of 9 is either positive or negative 3. So that's numero uno right there where people mess up. So the moment you root, you positive negative that sucker. And then what do we do? We do. And under certain circumstances at this point, we would be done. But right, and they're workable pathways. Like if that was a root 3, I would type it in, hit full send, I'm done. But it's not. So if we take the top pathway, what's negative 7 plus 3? Negative 4. And then if we take the bottom pathway, what's negative 7 minus 3? And those are your two answers. So you put negative 4 in the first box, and then you can hit comma or hit the cute little plus button and then put negative 10 in the other box. All better? No problem. Yep. 3 days off requires a refresher. So this is very much like the last one you asked me about. So I'm going to move the 12x across, make it plus, of course. And then we're going to divide everything by 2. That's going to give us x squared plus 6x minus 40. And then and make it positive. And then the magic number is half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Good. So we're going to add 9 to complete the square. And then this is also, this again is like the last one in that you're going to get rational solutions because 49 is going to come out here. So you're going to wind up with x plus 3 squared equals 49. Are we finishing? What'd you do?
Like x plus 6 squared instead of halving it like you did. So that's
So we wind up with x plus 3 equals what?
plus or minus.
Thank you. Positive negative 7, I will accept. Thank you. And then, and then you trace your 2 pathways. Yeah.
I know where I did something wrong.
No problem.